Hey everyone, this is Jesse and Kelly. We're going through our final project and we decided to use Photoshop, something that kids are really interested in for our final project. We decided to use a Blackboard course that is offered free to all of the students at Baltimore City, and it actually ended up being a really perfect time just because a student ended up going for homeschooling, where they had the opportunity to kind of follow along with the class without missing any kind of a step. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to go into my class Blackboard so that we get a good idea of what it looks like. There are my kids for Halloween. What it looks like for them. What they would do is they're going to go underneath the project, and I tried to make my course this year strictly kind of an online. Like I said, I had a lot of students that either had a problem or were absent. This kind of makes it that way there's no excuses. So we're going to go to our graphics and what they ended up doing, and we're going to get to the final project in a minute or two. But what I did is I created a folder for each one of the students, and if you go into the resources, each student has this available to them. So whether they're at home, whether they're in the classroom, they had this available to them. Let me start off by saying we chose Photoshop because a lot of kids, technology is really exciting, and Photoshop can be one of those programs that it can be hit or miss. It's either over complex or it's too easy for them. But Photoshop, for us, we want to make sure that as we're teaching it that we kind of started off with some of the ethics. So what we did, we started off by giving them a little bit of a background on Photoshop. And this background gave them a little bit of what Photoshop did, some of the history behind Photoshop, how it's been used politically, how it's been used ethically to kind of sway people a certain way. And, where you started off with this question of, how far is too far? What we decided to do was then to move on to more of a PowerPoint and to break kids up into different groups. And what we did, there's our question and our objective. We want to talk about the positive and negative implications of Photoshop in the world around them. We started off by reading an article, examining photos, and then they're going to argue different points of view. One thing that I start off with, and this kind of gets them really interested in it, is the evolution of beauty. It is a Dove commercial a while ago, and it brings through a girl and how they transform her from, she's not unattractive. They transform her from an average looking girl, or woman I guess in this case, and they transform her into a model. But they do it primarily, yes, through some makeup, but they do it primarily through Photoshop. And this kind of gets kids really interested in it, and it makes them start examining the world around them by magazines, by what they watch. And again, how far is too far? And a lot of students say, well, I think this is too far. But defining that line for them is always difficult. So they then go back into their project, where we actually break them up into different groups, different groups depending on movies, some on race, some on women, men, politics. And what they had to do is they had to answer a series of questions regarding their topic. This one's always interesting, right? Something that Wisconsin did is they actually threw an African American right there into it. So doing things like this gets the kids really excited, but also kind of looks at that question of, when I'm doing this, what is right, what is wrong? So going back to our project, one thing that the kids always complained about was the graphic novel that they have to read in English class. And I said, well, fine, let's amp it up, let's mix it up a little bit, let's actually revise it. So what they could do is they could use a novel that they're currently working on. Some use The Crucible, the things they carried. We'll see here they used Animal Farms, Things Fall Apart. And what I want you to do is I wanted them to revise a school novel by doing kind of a before and after. using Photoshop, they could also create their own, and they have different specifications that they needed to follow. So they needed to use certain types of, they needed to use at least 3 pictures, they had to be 8.5 by 11, it had to do this, it had to do that, it had to use blur, smudge, dodge, filters, they had to use the brush, and I'll show you a final product of that in a second. But the graphic novel, I think, was really fun for them. And what I ended up doing is posting them around, kind of showing the process in which kids did this. So what they had to do is they had to start off by finding different pictures. And they had to show me what the picture looked like before, where it came from, the location of it, where it is in their final picture, and the tools that they ended up using for their final project. Another thing that we also did as a class is we examined, okay, well, if I'm asking you to create a graphic novel from scratch, then you need to know what they look like. So we actually went over as a class some of the features. So you see it's adapted by, it's illustrated by, art is by this person. And we want to make sure that they included all these aspects in their own graphic novels when they were creating them. So, the one thing that people have the most trouble with when it comes to Photoshop is help. What we decided to do was a couple of different things. We decided to offer both written and video. And again, those are all available in those resources that I showed you originally. But to give you an idea, the PDF that's available for kids, it's from Photoshop itself. And it's a 27-page, and they can actually fast forward. 2 different steps that we asked them to complete. Sorry, my computer's running a little slow right now. So it talks about layers here, what's important by them, how to fill them in. And again, it just gives kids a good idea about when I'm using these terms in different videos, or I'm using them in person. It helps them understand, you know, okay, please look in your toolbox to try and find this. Another thing, because some kids just don't like using a PDF, is that we offer different videos. One video right here. One of these videos is right here, and this video real quickly goes through some of the very basics. So it starts off by going through what canvas looks like.
Control V or Command V if you're a Mac user, and bam, you've got your picture there. First tool I'm going to show you is the Move tool. It's really simple. Yeah, you can move images. Congratulations.
And I like this because it also tells you what the actual tool is called as he's going through it. So you're probably wondering, what does this actually look like? One student, and what we started off by doing is we had them actually draw out on a piece of paper. They had to create 4 rough drafts of what they were going to do. Just like as if they're in an English class, they had to write a rough draft or an outline. I want to see what they were going to do before they could start jumping into Photoshop. And if this was an online strictly class, they could draw it and then scan it in, which is what I ended up doing here for them. And here's our first one. Her name's Beverly. She decided to upgrade Animal Farm. And what she did is I only uploaded only 2 of them. But she ends up choosing this one for her final project. But again, it gives them the idea of, well, what exactly am I going to do? How should I start off with it? So her final project ended up looking like this, and a lot of it was actually hand-drawn, but what she did is she used the texture of a real pig, she used a brick wall back here, and she actually also used the green pastures. To ensure that they did this right, I actually made them bring in the original pictures to show me what they did. One more example before we go, I know we're running out of time, is Chin, and his final product looked like this. It is Things Fall Apart. And again, he's looking at this book, and the book cover didn't really explain the whole entire story to him. It's about white Europeans coming over to Africa during an imperialistic time. So what he decided to do is kind of update it. And this book cover, I think, looks a lot better. And his sources for it, again, as you can see, side by side now, he goes through and he edits a little bit. He puts Africa in the background there. He has what looks like a priest trying to convert, different trees in the background. And again, these are small differences that most people don't even notice on Photoshop. So it is pretty hard to kind of inform or make sure that the kids don't go off task and they just don't copy and paste a picture from online. I want to see them actually working through the Photoshop. So that's our class. What they do is they submit everything through Blackboard. They scan everything in. We grade it. We grade it right back to them. There's no need for direct contact. Thanks everyone for stopping by, and I hope we have a great rest of the year.